specifically said what they were saying or doing. One thing I heard more than once, that people were posting diarrhea photos. And that's not really off-brand for Dead Rabbit. We talk about that all the time on the show, but it's just not something you want to clutter your Discord up with. People want to go there to make friends and talk about UFOs and stuff like that, and then people are looking through BRAP photos. And I guess towards the end we got raided with that, or maybe some gore. I don't know, but at that point, like, I was already like, nah, I can't endorse it anymore. And Barfy Man says, yeah, it's a great idea, let's just shut it down. So that was it. It wasn't a huge thing. There wasn't one event or one thing that ended it. It was just basically, it grew too fast. It grew too fast, it became a distraction to me. That was it. Like, it wasn't a huge event. Nobody shut it down. No outside force shut it down, I should say. I made the decision, me and Barfy Man together, really. But Mudheno, let's talk about this story. I love this story. It has everything I love about a story. 1, I love aliens. 2, it's a bit of a mystery. 3, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, sometimes the end can be unsolved. They don't have to have a resolution on it. The ending can be unsolved. But like stories about a guy and he goes in the hallway and he sees a ghost in the hallway, that story doesn't have it technically has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but it doesn't. It's an event. It's just a single thing. I come across tons of stories of people driving through the woods. That's super unsafe. That's super unsafe. Hopefully they're on an ATV. They're driving down the road, they see a UFO. Or even stories I'll come across where they see, those are boring to me, just seeing the UFO. I'll see stories where people actually interact with aliens. The aliens come down and go, do better, and they leave. That's boring to me. It's an event. That's an event. This story, you have the alien showing up, you have people witnessing it, you have the investigator showing up, the Fox Mulder, who thinks he's going to break the case, and instead it's Mudheno. It's a man who's so muddy, he has a nickname, who people mistake for a space alien. And the aliens at the local health clinic were 2 dwarfs who were having like a prenatal checkup. That's brilliant. I mean, seriously, if you wrote that story, people wouldn't believe it. I love this one. And it was so funny, the other day I was just on Reddit and I saw someone going like, have you heard about the Varginha mystery? An alien was sighted. Is it the Chupacabra? I was like, no, it's Mudheno. This story always puts a smile on my face. I had actually forgotten about it. Like, when I saw the Reddit post, I go, Varginha, that name's super familiar, and I remembered covering it, but I did not remember the muddy homeless man who's so muddy people reference him as a mud man. And another interesting thing about this episode is I say in it, do you think cryptids live with homeless people? Like, if homeless people have more things to worry about than the man with 3 eyeballs, or like the spirit who's wafting around, they might be a little more concerned about the spirit. But it's funny because I wonder if cryptids hang out with homeless people. I totally forgot about that. It must have been like 200-300 episodes later. I have a vague recollection of covering a story about a flying bat monster in Chicago, and I think that's how that story ended. I think it was about a predator who was killing prostitutes and homeless people. And it's funny because I made this offhand comment and it must have stuck with me. I think that would be a really cool story. You don't have to go full on like modern fantasy stuff, and there's a market for that. I'm not knocking that market, but you could just have a story about a single cryptid, and then we go to the elf realm underneath the sewers, just a single cryptid hanging out. What happened to those stories where it was just like a single story? Now everything's built up into this super universe. I don't know where that rant came from. My point is that you just have a monster hanging out. Oh, damn it, that was Beauty and the Beast. That was that CBS show, Beauty and the Beast, starring Linda Hamilton. Anyways, let's move on. I love that story, Mudheno. Let's move on. This is a magnificent story. Again, it was sent to me by Ramses. It is the story of a man who invented a completely crackpot invention where he believes he can drink the nutrients of food, that it's being teleported, or it's being sucked up into the water. That in and of itself. And if you listen to the Yamashine episode, you guys will see, like I could tell there was a bunch of dense information on that one, so I did the Yamashine first. That in and of itself, just duplicating the food, that's a wacky invention. But this story, this epic saga we go on with Paul Adams is so fascinating. He's tricking people to drink replicated food. When he takes it to the coworker, he put a little breakfast burrito and he gives it to the girl and she drinks it, and then later on she wants a burrito and he's like, and he's constantly, could you imagine working with this guy? He's constantly trying to get people to drink his special water. That's brilliant. Not him, like that's a stupid idea. But you have the food replicator, and then we move on to the fact that he's replicating food, that's fine. And then we move on to the fact that he's tricking people into drinking it. And then he's drinking his semen. You have a problem in your life, you don't have enough of it. You remember he's having like some sex addict problem. I just remember his photographs, his collection of pornographic photographs. That made me laugh again when I was listening to this episode. Who has photographs? It's funny because I have like bikini. Anyone who's seen a live stream of my house, I don't have a bikini myself, but a live stream of my house, I have bikini calendars. My house looks like an old mechanic shop. I have Maxim's Hometown Honeys from 2007. I have that poster up. And then, sure, those are pictures, right? And some prude may say that those are pornographic, but they're not allowed over in my apartment anyway, so it doesn't matter. But having pornographic photos is it's quaint, isn't it? It's so like, I feel like it's something that Mark Twain would have. He'd have his book of old sepia-toned photos. Oh yes, here's Myrtle Barnes, nude. I don't know why he sounds like a surfer. It's such a great story, the way it escalates. And it truly is an escalation. Food replicator, super ridiculous. Replicating the food. He's putting it into practice. It's not just a theory. He's tricking people into drinking it. He's drinking his own semen. Then he talks about replicating a human. Like, I mean, you can't get better than that. He talks about someone made a joke about getting a hottie, and he talks about where he's going to find two 55-gallon drums. And then the end, it's the segment with his daughter. His daughter hasn't talked to him for a while, and he's talking about replicating his daughter. I think that I gotta give myself a pat on the back for this episode. I think it's really, really well laid out. If you want to talk about an episode with a beginning, a middle, or an end, it's this story. It's all about the layout on an episode like this, and that's why I needed that time. I needed to figure out the best way to tell that story, and it flows super organically. It flows like food from one bottle into the other. So, and it's funny because I said on the the Yawn Machine episode, I can hear in my voice desperation when I don't know if the story's landing. I can hear in my voice when I think you guys can tell when I'm tired or sick. There have been episodes where I'll get messages and people go, hey, I hope you feel better. And I don't mention it at all. I think they've started to pick up on and listen to 3 episodes in a row. You're like, oh, he sounds a little tired. But I can hear like desperation. I can hear that in my laugh. It's weird. I've been listening to myself for so long. I've become the ultimate lie detector, but only for myself. Not lie detector, but emotional detector. This episode, when I was listening to the food replicator, I put in my notes here for these. For this part, I said, such a laid-back episode. Very happy. I could tell listening to this episode that it was totally working. I could tell listening to this episode I was in a good mental state. I was probably very well fed. And I was having a good time telling the story. I knew when I started recording this episode that the story itself was great. The notes were great. I'm talking about both the Mudhino, and I knew that the story was going to work. The Yawn Machine was a second draft. I didn't know if it was going to work. But this one, I was like, nope. I took my time. And I don't always get to take that time. I don't always get to take that time with this show. Because it's a daily podcast. And you guys send me stories, and that is a lot of help. And you guys help get the word out, and that is a lot of help. And you guys support the show financially, and that is a lot of help. And then I edit, research, and record, not in that order, the episodes, and it's a time limit. You got 5 episodes to do a week, so I don't always have a lot of time to look stuff up. I do, and we'll talk about that more on the next Classics episode, because the next Classics episode, I think, is when people think about Dead Rabbit Radio, I think the next episode is might be one of the best episodes ever, as far as just letting things grow. But Paul Squirrel Academy, let's talk about this super, super fast. A lot of people reached out to me afterwards and found Paul Squirrel Academy. It is a Dianetics Scientology workbook. Paul Adams is a Scientologist. I actually think he's passed away at this point. I haven't seen any activity from him since 2019. Could be wrong. But it wasn't super funny. I mean, like, you know what I mean? It sounds funny, Paul Squirrel Academy, but I'll put it in the show notes. It's just some check sheets. There's no squirrels running around. But I appreciate everyone. It kind of crushed my dreams a bit, but I appreciate everyone who was able to find information on Paul Squirrel Academy. I got a bunch of people reaching out to me on that, so that is totally awesome. Really appreciate that. And, you know, whatever. I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh, Scientology, this guy's even crazier. Like, whatever. There's a billion religions out there, and some are weirder than others, but they all got their quirks, and I don't personally think Scientology is... I don't think it makes you stupid or dumb or gullible. I think the fact that this guy drank his own semen and was trying to replicate his daughter is completely divorced from the fact that he's a Scientologist. And I knew he was a Scientologist recording it. I just didn't figure it was worth noting. Just like there's a bunch of serial killers out there who are... This doesn't add to the story unless it adds to the story, unless it's a cult. And the reason why they're doing the killings is because they're an offshoot of this. Like the... Hobart Freeman, someone like that, like the killings were because of the religion. That's not something that I'm just going to gloss over. But if they're just doing something weird and they're a member of a religion, whatever, I don't care about that. So, the Paul Squirrel Academy, I'll put it in the show notes. Super disappointing. But I don't know. Maybe it'll be the most exciting thing you've seen. Maybe you've been looking for new worksheets to work through on Scientology stuff. I don't know. But I do know this. I have now recorded 2 versions of this outro. I'm only going to play one of them. The other one was long and boring. This one was just long and exciting. Guys, come back for the next episode of Dead Rabbit Radio Classics. It's a good one. So I actually underrated the episode we're going to cover next. So I hope you guys tune in for the next episode of Dead Rabbit Radio Classics. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio Classics, where we take a look at a classic episode of Dead Rabbit Radio with some new stuff. That sounds descriptive, right? Some new content at the end of the episode. And this episode actually got a lot to say. And this is an episode I probably listened to a couple months ago, and I got a lot to say about this episode. This episode might actually have been when I look back on it, as one of the big episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio. This episode, for the most part, changed the way I do the show. So let's sit back and give it a listen, and then at the end of the episode, I will talk about it. So everyone get strapped in for episode 391, The House That Eats the Dead. A man finds a treasure. Can you find it now? A man is saved from death by something. And then we travel to Hawaii to spend the night in a house that is not only rumored to be haunted, the house actually eats the corpses of the people it kills. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so we're going to jump right into this. But first off, we got to give a special shout out to my newest Patreon. I got another one, Natty the Nat. Natty the Nat? N-A-T-I-E, the Nat. Thank you, Natty. Whatever. Thank you. I should say whatever. You're donating money to the show. Thank you, Nady, for supporting the podcast. Really appreciate it. Should have asked how to pronounce your name, but I didn't. It's time to record this episode. So, Nady, hats off to you. Now, since normally we throw the Patreon supporter the keys to the Carpenter Copter or whatever vehicle we're taking, but because Nady is a gnat, we're just gonna ride on Nady the whole time. So everyone climb on the back of this giant flying insect. Gnats fly, right? Jump on top of Natty. We're flying to southwestern Oregon for our first story. The whole way. It's kind of cool because it's like the back vibrates. We're like, woo! We're like holding cups of pudding, and it's like we're holding cups of milk, and then the other ingredient in pudding, and it's just shaking. That's how you make pudding, right? You just shake it. What's the thing you shake to make? Shake and bake? Anyways, we're flying to southwestern Oregon. We're actually taking Nady back in time